All right, so Chapter 5, Section 4, Day 2, Understanding Inverse Proportion. You'll be able to identify inverse proportion and solve problems using inverse proportions. As you saw earlier, the number of game cards each student gets, Y, is inversely proportional to the number of students sharing 120 game cards, X. The graph shows this relationship. So the number of students, X, 1, 2, and 3, and the number of game cards, Y, 120, 60, and 40. These are the same situation we used yesterday. So the graph of an inverse proportion is a curve. Okay, so that's important to know. Star it, whatever you need to do. All right, because one variable decreases as the other increases, and the product of the variables is a constant value, neither value can be 0. So the graph of an inverse proportion never crosses the horizontal or vertical axis. So that's also important to know. The graph never crosses the vertical axis. Okay, so those are two things that are different from last time. All right, you can use the coordinates of any point, x, y, to find the constant proportionality. For example, we had 2, 60. If you look back up at your graph here, 2 and 60, 2 times 60 is 120. So we have 2 people, students up to 60 game cards, and then we have 3 students to 40 game cards, and then we have 4 students to 30 game cards, and we have 6 students, each one gets 20 game cards. And we started at 1 to 120. So if you look, you get a curve that is decreasing. Okay, so the constant of proportionality is 120. If you, each one of these, when you multiply the terms, you get 120 for each one. Okay? So, let us move on. Interpreting a graph of inverse proportion from a table. All right, so the time it takes to clean windows in an office building. Okay, so now as I look, we're missing some of the problems, so I'm going to read what it looks like on yours. It says, the table shows the time T it takes T hours for N construction workers to pave a road. Tell whether T is inversely proportional to N. If so, find the constant of proportionality. Okay? So I am going to do that over here. So number of workers is 1 times 36, 2, 18, 3, 12. So we're going to have 36 to 1. 36 times 1 is 36. And then we have 18 times 2, which is 36. And then we have 12 times 3, which is 36. I'm doing this again off to the side because this is a different question than you have. Okay, so they are inversely proportional, all right, because y equals k over x. So your constant of proportionality is 36. And your equation would be y equals 36 over x. Okay? So now we're going to go on to B, which says, okay, so it says the time it takes to clean windows in an office building is inversely proportional to the number of window cleaners. The graph shows the amount of time, y hours, it takes x window cleaners to clean the windows. Okay? So for A, it says, and I'm going to scoot this up, find the constant of proportionality graphically, then write the inverse proportion equation. Okay, so we get y equals kx. This is a y. Y equals kx. All right, so we look at our point, and it's 2, 12. Remember, an ordered pair is made up of an x value and a y value, so x is 2 and y is 12. So I needed the equation, my mistake, I apologize. xy equals k. That is for inverse proportions. So we're going to do 2 times 12, which is 24. All right, so 24 is k, which is also our constant of proportionality. All right, now it says, then write the inverse proportion equation. So y equals k over x. I apologize, I had used the direct proportion equation before. So you're going to get y equals 24 over x. Okay? Then for part B, it says explain what the 0.212 represents in this situation? It means that you need 2 cleaners for 12 hours of work. Okay, so if you have 12 hours of work or 12 hours to get your windows cleaned, you need 2 people to do it. Or if you have 2 people, it will take them 12 hours. Okay? So, solve problems. You have learned to write and solve equations. You have also learned to translate verbal description into inverse proportion equations. So you can write an inverse proportion equation to model mathematical and real-world problems. Then you can use it to find an unknown value. Okay? Identify the constant proportionality and write an inverse proportion equation. So, y is inversely proportional to x. Okay, so again, x times y equals k. So, y is 20, x is 8, so you're going to do 8 times 20, and that gives you 160. So your constant proportionality is 160. And then for your equation, either xy equals 160, or you can use the other equation, which is y equals k divided by x. So in that situation, you're going to have y equals 160 over k over x. And you're going to have an x here. Okay? So the last one, number 3, I'm going to read it for you, and then I'm going to have you try it on your own. It says, at an auto repair garage, the number of hours y it takes to repair a car is inversely proportional to the number of hours x. Okay? It takes 2 workers 6 hours to repair a car. How long will it take 4 workers to repair the same car if they work at the same rate? Okay? So first you need to define your variables. So what does x equal? What does y equal? And then you need to figure out your constant proportionality. And then you need to figure out for me what your indirect proportion equation is, which would be y equals. And then the last thing you need to do is find out how long it will take 4 workers to repair the car. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off, let you try it, and then we'll go over it together. Okay, so I defined my variables. X is the number of workers, y is the number of hours. I wrote down my indirect proportion equation, which is xy equals k. It told us that it took 2 workers 6 hours, so I plugged in 2 for x and 6 for y, and that gave me 12. Then that means my constant proportionality is 12, and I wrote it in my indirect proportion equation form, which is y equals k over x. So my k, my constant proportionality is 12, so y equals 12 over x. Then they told us how long will it take for 4 workers to repair the same car. So x was my workers, so I'm going to plug in 4 for x. So using this equation right here, y equals 12x, I plugged in 4 for x. So instead of x, I plugged in 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So that means it will take 4 workers 3 hours to repair that car. Okay? See you tomorrow.